section of our event where we invite anyone to take to the stage with whatever they've built or designed and wish to show in the context of soundings. In the past, I've struggled to get people to do it. Today, we've got too many people, if anything, because I've had a fourth person come up and ask if they can show something. So we're going to see how we go with the fourth person. But as it stands, we've got David Lloyd, who's going to do something first. Then we have Sarah Kenchington, and then Richard Sewell. The reason that we do this is to open this event up to greater number of makers, to provide some sort of platform and inspiration for people to come and show their work. Good timing. And also, what's nice is that David has been and done this slot once before, has then gone away and done some stuff, and then it's come back with a revised version of some of the work that he showed in the very first soundings. I will very briefly mention that this was a slot that our friend Richard Windley, who I mention each time because he was a great inspiration at an event I used to run in my village hall, where this slot also existed. He would always bring amazing inventions along, and it enriched the event greatly. So I'm always pleased when people are generous enough to come along with their work to present it to everybody. So I'll hand you over to David Lloyd.
Can everyone hear me? Is this working? Yeah. Okay, so this is a kind of very long-term process. I don't know if anyone's heard of a Dada machine. No. Basically a mechanical a system for a mechanical instrument. But it's driven by MIDI, musical instrument digital interface. So what I've done really is explored what I can do using MIDI from a guitar, a standard electric guitar. So it's really, don't think of it as a guitar, but just a way of me being able to communicate with other equipment. So that's really where I'm starting out. Last time I came in with a looper pedal, and I'm sort of working with that. This time I'm coming in with a guitar synth, very old GR30 Roland machine, but it's basically talking to a Moog combination of a Mother 32 and a D-Fan. So for me, the electric guitar is, I'm interested in the electric guitar really not as an instrument, but as a means of generating different kinds of sounds. So it's, if you think of it that way rather than as a guitar. And then the MIDI guitar, it's coming through from a hex pickup. Basically each string is communicating using the MIDI system to the MIDI, the Roland machine, but it's not generating any sounds. It's simply communicating with the Moog, which has got a MIDI connection. So I'm going to just try and see what comes from this setup. Very much a work in progress, but I'll just do a kind of brief performance for you.
Thank you, David. Great. Sarah, where is Sarah? There's Sarah. This is Sarah Kenchington, who some of you may also know from the first soundings.
Put something on there, maybe?
You can put something on there. She came with a large pedal-powered orchestra instrument and performed and presented at the first soundings. So, and it's a great surprise.
I know.
Can I help?
Just put it underneath. Put it on there.
All right.
Yeah.
That looks very precarious. It's a great surprise that she's turned up today from Bonnie, Scotland, to be at this event. And she's brought this with her. I'll hand you over to Sarah Kenchington.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, it's great to be here. So last time I came, I had my full orchestra, which I've been working on for probably 20 years. It's evolved over that time. This is my latest instrument, which I've been working on for a week. So it may or may not work, but for me, I'm always looking for a mechanical system that will give me an unpredictable pattern, probably, ideally a pattern that's a mixture of chaos and order, so that it's something like how we might construct music, but I try and find machines that will do that. Now, I found this on eBay. It's a 1940s adding machine, and purely as a function of this machine, you put your numbers in, turn the handle, and it will do all sorts of sums. But when a number goes to the next column, like from 9 to 10, a little lever lifts up. And I was watching the patterns of these levers, and I got very excited. And I thought, right, I need to be able to hear what these sound like, these patterns. And it looked to me like it was the holy grail of this kind of repeated patterns and little clusters, chords, and sort of very musical patterns, which are something that is, obviously there's patterns in numbers, but this pattern is purely a function of this machine. I don't think it's anything that people would necessarily explore in mathematics, that moment that something changes column. That's all these things are doing. But I've put in, for today's thing, I've put in the number 35355. If this turns out brilliant, all I need to do is write that number down, and then I can get it back another time. So what this machine is going to do is just add that number on over and over again. And I've put these little clock chimes in here. This is me trying to downsize, so we'll see. But the only problem with this, in downsizing, I've also down volumed, so it's incredibly quiet. I'll try it like this. And I hope it will work. Going to do a tiny adjustment here. It's got a little bit unhappy coming from Scotland. It's good so far though, isn't it? See, you're all just as excited as I am. And what I did when I started looking at this, because I also like to create alternative notation to try and access composed music as well as just improvising. And so I started notating these patterns. I did it all in colours, and I did a chart, and I turned this handle on just some kind of number. I think it was similar to that. I had some 5s in it, and I notated 200 turns, and I still didn't get any repeated patterns in that time. So it's amazing to be able to find a mechanical system that will create loops and patterns but not repeat itself. Is something that's really hard to find. And obviously this is just very early days, but I just was excited by it, so I wanted to share it there, because I think that I've just got 5 on there at the moment, but I've got 12 columns there. So when I may use this mechanically, but I may just notate by looking at when the levers lift up, and use it with a choir or something. That 12 voices might be nice, because it's just saves me the job of composing, basically. Just does it all for you. So that's me. It's just a quick little hello there.
Sorry, this is a bit of an improv bit in itself. This is Tim Cranmore. Lives in Malvern still, I presume?
I do live in Malvern, yes.
Recorder maker, and used to quite regularly visit the event that I used to put on in my village hall called If Wet, and was alongside Richard Windley, was really one of the most regular contributors to this section. So when he turned up today saying, I've got something I'd like to show you, it would seem rude not to try and fit him in. So I'll hand you over to Tim Cranmore.
Thank you. Just a second. With you in just a second. Here we go. Now, I generally come and talk about recorders, which of course are the most boring instrument on the planet. So I'm not going to change the habits of a lifetime. I'm going to talk about recorders. But I'm just going to talk about the design of recorders, because I've been working up a bit of a show based on the design of recorders. Now, most of you, actually probably none of you know at all, the only reason school children play the recorders is because in 1936, the Nazi Party decreed that every German child should play the recorder. This was to unify education throughout Germany. Every German child had to play the recorder, and of course these recorders had to be made, and they were made in enormous factories in East Germany using these brand new techniques of injection molding. And I was just going to talk a bit about 4 recorders that have been designed, and they're not quite what you might expect. Now, this is a recorder. You can come and look at it afterwards if you like. It's the most horrible example of the recorder ever created on the planet. It's a mix. The body is wooden, the top is injection molded. It comes apart, I think. Everything about it is absolutely terrible. And how some industrialist went to the end of his production line, picked this up and thought, I am proud of my product. I have not the faintest idea. It is utterly disgusting. It plays a sort of a scale. Horrible thing. And yet this is what those poor German children, including the musical ones, were subjected to. The interesting thing about this recorder is that if you look at the thumb hole, it's had an enormous amount of wear, which means that someone really played this for hundreds and hundreds of hours, and I feel so sorry for them. Do come and have a look at it. It's really disgusting. Now, this is another reinvention of the recorder. Anyone seen one of these? This is a real Dr. Seuss recorder. This is called a flautophone, and this was the American version of it. It's pure Dr. Seuss, Horton Heard a Who, that sort of thing, and was played in hundreds in American marching bands. Once again, it's completely horrible. It's got a thumb hole on the back, and I understand that they still make them today, a flautophone. It's got some merit, hasn't it? Yeah? Now, and I was going to talk about this recorder because when the Second World War was over and all those poor German children had gone home, quite a lot of them liked playing the recorder. The other interesting thing about the Second World War is that in 1939, the Nazi Party sent out a decree across the whole of the Third Reich saying that boys should stop playing recorders immediately and that only girls should play recorders. Boys had to play trumpets and drums in order to put their minds into a warlike mood. All this has been researched by a friend of mine in Berlin recently. It's very interesting. Now, at the end of the war, a lot of these ladies came out and they really liked playing the recorder, which is why you find in the German-speaking world a real preponderance of female players over male players. And there was a recorder maker in Bridlington. Where Bridlington is, it's up above Scarborough, no, it's below Scarborough. And he decided, he was an English maker, of course, he worked from a wheelchair, he was a complete recluse, he lived with his mother, and he said, I'm going to make a handmade recorder for £27.50, and he went ahead and did it, and he was the most successful recorder maker in the UK. But he sold recorders to the elderly ladies who come through the war. And he didn't think about originals or anything. He just designed the thing from the bottom up. And what he did was he put everything very close together because he knew that his customers had arthritic fingers and they couldn't spread their fingers like that. So he completely redesigned the recorder. This keywork is wonderful, all handmade from silver steel, I think. It's got adjusters, it's got springs, everything is double sprung. And it's a bit quiet, but it does actually work very nicely. It does work nicely, but I can't find where the finger holes are. The most wonderful thing is this long key here. I've got one of his that's twice as long, and the key is twice as long. It's amazing. Albert Lockwood. That's a real trivia quiz. The man who made recorders in Bridlington. Now, I'm not going to go on for very much longer, but I make recorders, and most of the recorders that I've made have been copies from museum instruments, because that's what the professionals want. They want copies from museum instruments. But as we know, the recorder has a bit of an image problem, and two of those image problems are it's far too quiet and it looks like a recorder. Yes, thank you. So, I addressed that at the beginning of lockdown, and I designed this recorder, which is a jazz recorder. It doesn't look much like, I don't think it looks like a recorder, and it's meant to look cool, and it's meant to appeal to boys. Because you try and get a boy to play a recorder nowadays, it's almost impossible. It's pretty loud, and you can also put a pickup in the side. This one hasn't got a pickup on it and connects it through to your sound system, so it's very, very loud indeed. And I've just sent a couple of these off to California where the lady is playing jazz. And this one, actually, I only recently finished it, and I was trying to address the volume problem, and I don't hope it's not going to be amplified, but this should be the natural sound. Actually, if I just pop this off here so it doesn't get amplified, put that away in the pocket. So you could hear how quiet this was. This recorder is in B flat, by the way, a good jazz key. And this is a completely acoustic recorder. I think that's pretty loud, isn't it? Yeah, you can hear that above the band. So that's what I've been doing. I've been redesigning the recorder as a nice thing to look at and a good thing to listen to. And I just thought I would show you the other 3 redesigns where people really should have had their heads examined. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Tim. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? Going to hand you over now to Richard, and this is going to be about a contraption he has down here, but also it's going to be a transition into the performance part of the evening. I think the idea is that you might follow Richard outside at the end of his presentation. In the meantime, we'll get a bit more set up on stage for the performances, and then we'll kick off the performances when you come back in. Thank you. This is Richard Sewell.
Hello. So I'm not remotely a musician. I mostly make giant inflatable robots, but I've worked with Sam on making some of AMs, and I make a lot of things and gizmos and stuff. Anyway. So I'm going to tell you a story which starts in 2009 in Bristol Hackspace, when some of us, me, John, Honeyball, Phil Phelps, realized that we could probably do wavetable synthesis on an Arduino just about if we tried really hard. That probably makes little sense to most of you. So this was a ridiculously small computer which we could just about play sound on. We could generate sound in real time. And we used it for assorted musical things. And I was interested in the idea of playing music which was generated from your location, literally from a GPS coordinate. And I found myself in the summer, I think, of 2009 at a hacker camp in Holland working on the first version of a thing, which is really this, which is very ugly. Come and have a look later. So this has a GPS on the top, so it knows where it is when it's outside, and some software which generates music based entirely on what that location is. So in any one spot on the planet, it plays some tune, and if you move it a couple of feet, it plays a different tune. This sounds horrible. The music is nasty, but it sort of proved the principle, and I liked it, but nothing really happened with it. We can take that outside and listen to that as well if you want. I don't know if any of you know about the grand tradition of hacker camps. So they are like a kind of nerd Glastonbury. They have 2 or sometimes even 10,000 people camping in a field for a weekend or a week. There's usually internet and power to every tent because you don't want to go camping without the internet. It used to be wired internet, but now we have Wi-Fi, so you don't have to have wired internet, but you still can if you want. And you will find huge outpourings of this very often nerdy and computationally based creativity. People making all kinds of stuff because they can, because they want to show it off, because they just like the idea. So a lot of really strange things which would never exist in a more organized art form get built for these. So this kind of came out of one. And the world of techno was really built for another. So my friend Julia and I wanted to make a thing which was sort of like this, but more musically appealing, more interesting, more of an experience that people would actually want to be with instead of just exclaiming at the technical marvelousness of it. And we started, I mean, usually nerds like techno. These nerds, nearly all of them like techno. And we wanted to make a sort of location-based techno thing of some sort. I'd made some other musical machines of various sorts and had some ideas about how you design the experiences for those things so they're interesting. So we started with, by then, this kind of low-rent computing had moved on a lot. We started with a Raspberry Pi with some software called Sonic Pi, which is a generative music system for, I mean, it's intended for live coding. That is where you're actually writing code in real time while the music is playing. So you're changing the code and the music is changing. It's fun to play with if you like that kind of thing. So we took that. We actually took a techno sample that came with Sonic Pi, built this hardware, and then added code to use the position to affect what the techno was. So in the original Sonic Pi, for example, there were lots of places where it would pick a set of notes it was going to use for a while, or it would pick a rhythm, or how long something would go on for. And we made all of those decisions depend on various aspects of your exact numerical location. And if you use all of the digits of your location, when you fit into that, you know that every different place has different music. It might not be very different, but definitely a bit different. So that's what's in there. And what we will usually do with it is go to one of these hacker camps, charge it up, turn it on, abandon it, just leave it in a path somewhere, and somebody will come along. There aren't really any instructions on it. There's a suggestion that you push it around, and it's got a handle, so obviously it's meant to be pushed. And somebody will come along and take it away. And you sort of hear it go away, and you hear the techno vanish off into the distance. Then you're off, having supper or sitting in a talk about how to break into the GSM encryption or something. And you just hear it going by, playing this little techno, goes past the tent. Eventually it goes flat. Somebody always brings it back. There's usually a sticker on it saying where we're camped, and it just turns up. Some stranger says, "We think this is yours. Can you fix it, please?" Sometimes it breaks. Sometimes it comes back fixed. One time it came back with different techno. Somebody had opened it up, got into the files, changed the techno a bit. It was great. We left it like that for a long time. And that was really interesting as a social experiment, a thing I'd never done before, which is to make a thing and just abandon it to the care of this community and just see what happens. People don't usually do that stuff, because if you do it in a conventional urban setting, somebody will steal it or vomit on it or just jump on it. But usually people are lovely. They're nearly always lovely, and it's been a really nice experience to do that and have people play with your thing, even though they don't know who you are or where it came from. They just literally found it in a path. They go, just playing techno, let's push it along a bit. Also, stickers are a big thing at these events. It's got a lot of stickers now. I don't know what most of them even mean, but people like stickers, so it's got stickers. It's another aspect of that giving it over to the community to play with, and that is an effect which I would like to play with more, because it's clearly quite powerful. People love it. They love to feel they are trusted with the thing. It feels a little bit like their thing. There was a hacker camp last summer that I couldn't go to, and somebody from the organizing committee said, "Can somebody bring this? Like, you're not coming, but could that come?" And somebody did a big drive to come and get it from me and take it there, and they charged it and ran it and looked after it, and it came back, which was lovely. So I'm going to turn it on now. It will take a couple of minutes to boot. In here, it can't see the sky, so it doesn't know where it is. It will make its "I don't know where I am" noise. And then when it's booted, I'm just going to go for a little walk around the block so you can hear the techno. And if you'd like to come with me, that would be lovely.
Thank you. Richard. Whilst you go off around the block, we'll do some rearranging of this stuff for the performances when you come back. I'll be doing a short feedback instrument performance, and then Pierre will take to the stage for the main performance at the end. I think that's about it. The only thing that did quite amuse me is that Richard's now about to take this out into Worcester on a Saturday night, probably find that it will get stolen, vomited on, or jumped on by somebody. But
They don't make another one.
let's hope not.
So it's also worth saying that this is all really cheap stuff, and that is another very liberating thing. I mean, speakers from a charity shop, I had to pay money for the GPS, but they're like 20 quid now. There's a Raspberry Pi, scrap steel, things out of skips. There's a sort of power in the cheapness of things, because it means you can do things that are not precious with them. If it ends up in a Dutch ditch at some point, I'll just make another one, and it won't take very long, and it won't be expensive. So cheapness is its own power in these things. I just have to keep talking till it boots now, don't I? Does anybody have any questions?
Have you got a way of playing with parameters and then seeing where in the world that sound would come from?
So the question is, can I play with the parameters and then see where in the world that sound would come from? The answer is no. It doesn't have, there's a lot of automation you could put around it. You could put it on a network and track where it was. You could make it so you could replay journeys. I've never done any of those things. People do occasionally. Somebody, the codes, I've stuck it on the internet. Somebody put the code on their laptop, I think, and then recorded their journey to camp with soundtrack by this coming out of their laptop. There've been a couple of other people who've taken it and done something of their own with the code, which is very sweet. It's lovely. Yeah, it's the World O Techno, and there's a QR code on it somewhere. So this is the I don't know where I am noise, and now we'll go outside and see if it knows where it is. There we go. Now it knows where it is. The techno will keep changing for a little bit because the GPS is sort of moving around while it catches the nearby satellites. And we can't see much sky here. All right, let's go for a walk. So here is different from over there, and, well, let's keep going. Mind the taxi.